Hello friends, today we're going to be talking about Mars entering its own sign of Aries. For this transit, I'm going to put Mars's transit in the context of all the obstacles that it has to meet along the way. This is going to be a hard transit. So Mars is coming back home into its own sign of Aries. This is where Mars is completely supported, it's dignified. This is where forward movement is supposed to be clean, directed, and unquestioned. So this is Mars getting close to the front door of its house and is starting to look for its keys. Like, where did I leave the keys to my home? But as it gets closer, it sees that the front door is open and Mars is like, what the hell? This is not how I left my home in 2024. That was the last time Mars was in Aries. This Mars is starting to realize that, oh my God, there's a malefic party in my house. And I'm going back home. That means I have to play host to all of these crazies. But before going on with the story of Mars, I want us to realize that the sign of Aries is not about negotiations. That's the opposing sign, Libra. Aries is the point where existence is trying to burst into existence. Here, we don't ask for permission. We don't wait for other people to understand us. We don't wait here till we feel ready to act. There is no procrastination and reflection. We move in the sign of Aries because movement is required. We have to move for anything else to follow, to come into being, to have a follow through in general. And we also have to remember Aries is the first light, is the fire sign, is the first sign of the zodiac. And that first light is saying the way that we come into this world. And one of the first things, one of the first profound understandings that we have is that I am, that I exist, the terrible twos, right? We know who we are and why that matters before we know anything else in this life or what anything means. So I want to point out the self-referential components, and that's because it has to set itself into motion. And when Mars comes back, especially in its own home, in its favorite domicile, I mean, Scorpio is the other sign of Mars, but Mars is most comfortable in the sign of Aries because it is like its own qualities. Both are made of fire, both are of the masculine principle. And that cardinal component of Aries is very aligned with that one-pointedness of Mars that just wants to move forward. So when Mars gets into the sign of Aries, is looking towards having clarity. The sign is lit, itself is of fire. It's looking to finally have a sense of direction, that cardinal component of Aries. And it wants to have explosive movement. And that's because Mars itself is of raw energy. Again, its force has a one-pointed direction. This is our will, seeing a target and just going through and penetrating through anything and everything to get to that goal and target. Like, you can't ask Mars in Aries to pause, to contemplate, to feel it out. Just wait a little bit. This is like asking a bullet that's been shot out of a gun to suddenly become considerate of the person that's standing in front of it. Mars will just shoot out and move through without consideration and without second thought. And it will penetrate through that body that is standing in front of it, remorseless. So going back to our story, Mars walks in through its house at that 0-degree mark. And the first thing that it notices is that something in its house feels off. So Mars is like, bruh, why does everything feel so hazy here? It's like people have been lighting up and there's just smoke and some funky music playing in the background. Mars is like, I can't see anything. I can't even see where the hell I'm going because there's like fog and mist. And we got to remember, Mars really hates this. And as I was just explaining, Mars wants to fight and it's a target. It doesn't want to be in a place where it can't see where it's going or what it's fighting. Because Mars locates something, it locks in, and then it goes for the kill. So middle of this haze and this fogginess, he hears a voice in the background. Someone saying, hey, little buddy, it's me, Neptune. Hope you don't mind. I've just crashed here for a little bit and I'm just going to be here until 2029. This is like Mars's worst nightmare, having like a hazy, diffusing, foggy planet and its home. Like, Mars knows that the ground of action has been compromised because Neptune is now a guest. But because this Mars is dignified, even though it's so frustrated right now that Neptune is here, it's just gonna like be like, all right, I just gotta keep marching forward. I need to just soldier on because I'm the host. I can't kill Neptune. So this is the Mars within us bearing the fact that we can't have precision right now. And we kind of feel helpless about it. It feels kind of bigger and larger than us, but we have to bear it. This is us having our sense of direction blurred. We might have even made some decisions, but right now we're sitting and we're second guessing that. And that's coming from Neptune's diffusion, the way it diffuses everything, fractures the straightforwardness of things. So it's distorting our sense of direction in life. It's taking away our ability to see reality as reality is. Even with Mars here right now, we can't cut through reality. So this moment is very confusing. It's like, I don't know if I'm at the edge of a cliff. Like if I take one more step, I might fall off. Everything might come to an end, but I don't know if it's the edge. Do I just keep going? So there's a feeling of danger in the air, which creates anxiety. It's hard to know why things are the way they are right now. We don't understand why we have to do certain things, have certain experiences, or not knowing why we're doing what we're doing anymore. It used to make sense, but not anymore. So this Neptune right now is creating a lot of doubt and hesitation in us. But because Mars is here, we also have this urge that no matter how confusing things are, I gotta keep moving. Because we are in the sign of Aries, we don't feel like we have the luxury to sit down and to feel this out, to figure out what it is. Things are moving very fast around us. We're trying to stay caught up to certain things. So we can't sit. So that quality of Mars as a soldier who has to march on is very much alive in us right now relative to Neptune and the hardship that it's bringing. And there's another thing too. This is Mars's homecoming, right? So Mars has gone through all the signs for the past 2 years. Mars was debilitated in Cancer. This Mars in us has gone through way too much to be like, oh, here's an obstacle. I'm just going to sit and dwell on it. We know that we got to keep moving. We've come too far to stop now. We know that we're at the precipice of a breakthrough. And we don't have the luxury of dwelling on hypotheticals, which Neptune can create. But let's go back to Mars after it's marched past Neptune and this haziness. It's literally like someone was smoking weed and there was just this big cloud of smoke. Mars has walked through it. It's just like, I'm all hazy. And before it can stabilize itself and get its shit together, right when it gets to the end of that fog and steps out of it, guess who he finds there? Yes, Saturn, standing right at the edge of where the fog ends, Mr. Reality. And right away, Mars is like, for fuck's sakes, what the hell? From all people, not you, not in this moment. And Saturn's like, yep, you better believe it. It's me, and I'm going to be here till 2028. So we got to realize Mars just encountered Neptune and all the confusion and distortion that it brings. The one that dissolves our sense of direction. Now it's standing in front of that planet that constantly wants to test our sense of direction, our sense of realism. Do you know where you're going? Do you know your limits and bounds? How you ought to move? So in the first 5 to 7 degrees of Aries, Mars is very confused. The Mars within us, the drive, the will is confused. The world is confused at the moment. But Saturn is remorseless. Even though we're confused, Saturn's going to start its reality testing right away. It's going to test how we're moving against reality and against time, because Saturn represents time. This Saturn's going to feel like our margin of error is now 0. We can't make any mistakes. And imagine that, when you feel rushed, your key drops out of your hand, you just like trip over something. In this very confusing, anxiety-ridden moment, we need absolute precision, which is very difficult. So the Mars within us here wants to act, and Saturn's constantly asking on what basis. Very cold, very stern in a Saturnine way, almost dismissive. And the Mars and us want to say, I have to, I must, because I can. And of course, Saturn will just look at us very coldly, say, that's not good enough. So as you can see, Mars is placed in a situation where it's dealing with a lot of complex, contradictory, and layered issues. And that's because when we take Neptune and Saturn together relative to Mars, they're creating this feeling where we're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. And even if I do try, I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do it. I'm not sure if it'll give me the outcomes that I want. So that doubt and uncertainty is coming out of this combination relative to our will and our drive and our need to act. And this is creating a lot of frustration within us. You almost feel helpless. Like, I have to move to survive, but I'm being held back. And we got to remember Mars doesn't deal with indecisions. It doesn't have the tool in its toolkit to do that. Nor does Mars have the capacity to tolerate delays. I was saying, like, it's like that bullet that comes out of a gun. You can't ask it to just slow down a little bit. Okay, now pause, now pick up your speed. When it's out there, it's just moving. So Mars can't delay. But that's exactly what Saturn's going to do to Mars. It's going to frustrate it. It wants to stop its motion or forward movement in life. And on top of that is making Mars justify itself and its existence, its sense of I am. It almost feels like in this moment of life, we're trying to justify to other people why we have to exist, why we deserve something very basic and fundamental to our life, why we're good enough, why we should be allowed to move in the world. So this is a dignified Mars in its own home, but its integrity as the force, power, and strength that it is being questioned. Like, it's one thing to go to someone else's house and they insult you. It's another thing when you're at your own house and your guest insults you and wants you to leave your own house. It doesn't even make sense. This is the kind of situation Mars is in. This is us having our sense of direction, our motives, our intention, our goals, all of it being scrutinized right now. And it's Saturn doing this through its pessimism, cynicism, doubt, being critical, cold, trying to be objective when there should be some sense of humanity in things. So Saturn's bringing a lot of hardship to Mars right now. And in planetary friendship, Mars and Saturn are enemies. They do not like each other. But Mars is also trying to be a host right now because of his dignity to host this very annoying guest in its house. But I do want us to realize, no matter what, Mars is in its own sign. And that means Mars is insanely powerful and dignified. And Saturn's debilitated. Saturn's undignified. It's doing things out of provocation, out of just being a jerk. Like, Saturn's the one that's actually not justified right now in doing what it's doing. So as much as Neptune and Saturn might be trying to create doubt within us, I want us to know that Mars knows what it's right. The Mars within us knows. We have to use that fire aspect of the sign to get that power of knowing, seeing. But going back to our story. So Mars is like, oh man, I gotta march past this one too. I gotta be that dignified host. As painful as it is, as much as I would just love to behead Saturn. So he walks past Saturn. But we're not done. Things have to get a little bit more complicated, of course, because we do have another guest and character joining this party, which is Mercury's ingress into the sign of Aries on April 14th. And Mercury is also have to hit Neptune, Saturn, and then I'm going to have a conjunction between Saturn, Mars, Mercury. It's just a mess. I'll just put the chart on the side here. I'll be making separate videos for all of this, but today we're just going to talk about how Mars is going to go through the entire thing. But we need to remember what Mercury is about. Mercury is all about interpreting things. And Aries is about intention and action. And I want you to remember, in planetary friendship, Mercury is neutral to Mars. We could even say it likes Mars. Mars hates Mercury. And that's because when Mars decides on something, the Mars within us says, I'm going to do that. We just want to follow through. Mars just wants to do that. But when we get Mercury mixed up here, the intellect is getting into the mix, because that's what Mercury represents. That means we start talking, analyzing, thinking about this and that, as if everything needs to be broken down to its relational parts. So because of this, Mercury is always stalling Mars. And this is one of the reasons that Mars doesn't like Mercury. Mercury is like a pest that just wants to distract that initiation of Mars. So in this situation, when Mercury starts entering into the sign of Aries, it starts with a whole bunch of questions. He's going to be asking Mars, why are we doing this and that? Why are we here? Where are we going? What is this for? And of course, Mars is going to respond in a violent way to Mercury, which is, can you just fuck off and let me do my things? I had to cuss a lot in this video. Mars is about like you have a very foul language. But in general, Mars is not about pleasantries. It's very blunt. It would talk like that, especially in the presence of Mercury. Mars Mercury people also have this kind of a language, can become very common. But just like the way Mars can't stop being Mars, Mercury can't stop being Mercury. So it's just going to continue. No, no, no. You have to explain this. So as you can see, when Mercury gets into the mix, movement is losing its immediacy. And that's because Mercury comes in thinking, now I have to mediate every movement. Mercury is the mediator, the messenger. And it also wants to filter every action through thought and wants to think about it. It needs to filter it through language. So it needs to talk about it. Mercury is a relational planet, so it's constantly trying to find an alternative route to how we can act this out. So this is creating fragmentation at the level of decision making in our life. And I'm saying this because Mercury is with malefics. And Mercury has this chameleon tendency to become a malefic when it is with malefics. When it's with benefics, it acts like a benefic. It's like the cutest, loveliest guy. And then when he's with like Saturn or Mars, he becomes malefic. He supports their agenda because it's in the relationality of those planets. It's about their relational dynamics. So our ability to just declare our intent to ourselves or to other people becomes very problematic with Mercury here. This is the Mars within us saying, dude, I just need one direction. I need to put on the blindfolds and I just need to move that way. And Mercury's like, but what about these other 10 directions? So it's adding to that doubt that I was talking about earlier that came when Mars entered into the sign of Aries. So what this is doing, it's scattering our energy. It can make us feel exhausted, like especially mentally exhausted. Mercury here is producing overanalysis. And considering Saturn's in the mix, that overanalysis will turn into paralysis. It's creating so much anxiety and fear in us, and that's because Saturn's present here too, especially when there's that 3 conjunction between Saturn, Mars, and Mercury. We need to be mindful of this. But again, we're not done with the story. We got to introduce another character. So during this Mars transit, we have Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. So Jupiter is in the neighborhood of Aries, and from Aries to the sign of Cancer, we have a square, right? So it's a very tense dialogue. It's not a pleasant one. Squares don't make our life easier. They want us to resolve a problem, and that means there's a problem at hand. And this Jupiter is not like it's in the same sign. It's not having the same kind of interference as those conjunctions, but it's definitely adding a lot of tension to the environment of Aries. This is like that philosophical neighbor who lives at the end of the cul-de-sac where from distance they just blurt out deep shit that's just irrelevant at the moment. So this is like Jupiter at the other end screaming at Mars, dude, can you really hold that thing that you're initiating? Do you have the emotional capacity or the foundation to support the scale of your actions? What about your intentions? I don't know why. I'm just imagining Jupiter drunk here right now. I don't know why. It's like the drunk philosopher neighbor. But on a serious note, when we think about Jupiter, we have to keep in mind that Jupiter is about expansion. But Jupiter doesn't expand hypothetics. It expands what already exists. And Jupiter is right, because if our inner foundation is not stable, if it doesn't have enough room, expansion just becomes more pressure, more weight that we have to hold. So the presence of Jupiter here is actually letting Mars know in a tense way that Mars is starting something and it's in the midst of something that's bigger, it's so much bigger than itself. This Jupiter is actually giving us the wisdom to see why we're having the problems that we're having. And Jupiter showing us we're having these problems. It's not just because we can't act. Jupiter is showing us that we have alignment problems. Alignment between how we're trying to move in the world and what it is that we're holding within. They are not intersecting. They're not aligned. There's a mismatch between what we truly feel, what we're holding on the inside, and how we're directing ourselves externally in the world. And I just want to say this about Jupiter and Mars. Mars is upward looking. Jupiter is in Cancer, so it's casting our gaze inward. There's a lot of pressure right now on us to understand how to align this inner self with our external movement. It's trying to create correspondence. And now we're getting to the end of the video. And before closing, please do remember to share, subscribe, and like. And please do comment. Let me know how you're experiencing this haziness of Neptune, the way Saturn's trying to bring things of hesitation, questioning ourselves. How are you experiencing that? How are you creating the inner alignments? And I want you to know something. There's something going on with YouTube. I'm not sure what's happening. Because as you guys' comments come in, I read them. And in the last video, when I went back 2 days later to comment back, only 15 of them were visible to me to comment back. I'm trying to figure this glitch out, and I hope it's resolved so I can message every single one of you. But do leave your comments. I read them. And I think us reading each other's comments matters because it's important to know that we're not alone in these moments of life. There's an order to this life, how things manifest. There's a theme, but we experience reality in a different way. And if you want a reading of this transit or just to understand your own birth charts, the blueprint that's been designated to you, which is defining what the purpose of this life is, why you're here, where your soul is trying to go, what experiences it's trying to have, and why. All of that is in the chart. And if you want to get a reading, you can go to my website at parisayazdi.com or to the description box below. I have my email there and you can contact me directly. And now to close. With this transit of Mars, I want us to realize there is, as difficult as things are right now, there is a reason to celebrate Mars in its own sign. Because we are getting a license to move as we are, who we are. Mars knows how to direct itself, the Mars within us. But right now, everything's being complicated because that force within us that says go is right now entangled with the confusion of Neptune. But if we think about it, this is us being drawn to our ambition, to the dreams that we set for ourselves in the sign of Pisces, where now it is non-applicable. We have to redraw those dreams. So a lot of that conflict is about that. And that's why Jupiter wants a sense of alignment. It is complicated right now because Mars has to have that complicated conversation with Saturn. But if we look deeper into that too, Saturn is conditioning us to do the same repetitive act towards this dream over and over until it's conditioned in us. Saturn wants us to understand the reality of this dream. On ground zero of life, when it's becoming manifest, what does it take to maintain it? What does it mean to act towards it? And even the pressure that's coming from Mercury is forcing us right now to think about the discrepancies that exist between who we were, who we are, and who we are becoming. Between what we want to pursue and what in reality we can do right now, especially when they have that triple conjunction with Saturn. Mercury is actually helping us figure out what it is we need to do. Another thing that this month is teaching us is the art of pace. It's very difficult for Mars to slow down and to think, but we can also look at these planets in terms of them helping Mars to go through this process, as hard as it is. And I want you to pay attention. This moment is not about not having energy, even though there's a sense of like mental exhaustion. We're being tested right now. But if we take a good look at ourselves, we actually have a lot of energy. The problem that we're having right now, we're moving through too much. It's too many contradictory conditions all at once. And I also want us to see that the things that are happening, even though sometimes we feel like because of that Saturn, we're procrastinating and we can't move, is not from our lack of will. But we have to realize the will in us is being tested to the max right now. This is the universe testing us, the initial test, the first reality test of the path that we see ahead of ourselves and we want to follow through. This is a stress test to see how aligned we are externally and internally, how ready we are, how dedicated we are. And we're being conditioned to take it on because Mars has just begun. Mars will take 2 years to go through the entire zodiac, but it's a harsh initiation. And I want you to keep in mind, don't give up if things get rough during this transit. If you're certain about where you're going, you know your purpose in this life, don't stop, keep moving. And if you feel that there's not enough alignment, You have to force yourself to pause and to think and to feel so that that alignment can start to connect itself for you. This is really us learning what it means to have a goal, whether if it's material, spiritual, relational, social, political. It's about understanding what it means to have a goal, not just in the realm of thought, not just something that's appealing in our heart, but what it means to have this goal as our soul's purpose and how much it takes to actually manifest that in the world. This is showing us how much it takes in life to move through things, to move with things because of all these conjunctions. It's showing us that you may want something in life, and in your own head, because you can't conceptualize the obstacles, you're just keep going. But in real life, in reality, there's constant obstacles coming your way in the form of people, situation, timings of things. There are things that are constantly moving against us. And that's because this is the nature of life. So we need to have the right conditioning to know how to get through it. And hopefully without violating other people and other things in this life. And I want us to know, a lot of times in life when things get difficult, the inclination is to just stop. But with Mars in the sign of Aries, is saying something about overcoming. And every time we overcome something, we become more resolute. The path opens itself a little bit more. We have to try, retry, fail, learn from our failure. And there's another thing that comes with obstacles, the beauty and the necessity of obstacles. Because in our head, we're moving towards our dream. We look a certain way. We have certain things, not understanding so much of it is unnecessary, and it's unnecessary weight that we're carrying. In reality, we don't want to carry those things. Obstacles show us what it is that we need to put down, relinquish, let it go so that we can move with simplicity forward. Mars is simple in some ways. It doesn't want caviar and champagne. Just give it a can of beans in the can. I'll put it on top of the fire and I'll just eat that. And that's good enough. It's getting the energy that it needs. It's about understanding how to become more efficient. And it's good to know the things that we don't have to carry in this life. They're just bells and whistles. The obstacles allow us to see what those things are. So this moment has a purpose. In itself is showing us what alignment really means. And we'll see that once when we get to the finish line, whatever it is that our heart desires, our soul desires, at the end, when we get to the finish line, we're holding things that truly matters. We cultivated things that matter. We fought for things that matter. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters in this life. It was never the goal. As the cliche saying goes, it was always a journey that counts. Things that we were meant to live for, fight for, and even die for. A dignified Mars knows that in life, you fight against something because you are fighting for something. An undignified Mars just fights against things. And before ending this video, I'd like to leave us with a wish. And I say, may your will stay clear, even when the path shifts. May your direction strengthen until it becomes undeniable. And may you move forward with power that knows exactly why it exists. And that's it for today. Sending you much love. Till next time.